and let everybody join us tonight. Glad people can join us at this hour. This is a experiment to see if this works out well for foster parents. I had some requests for some evening presentations, and we have 2 more coming up in December. So with the amount of people signing on, it looks like this is working out for us. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rachel Kinder, and I am the director of the Frameworks program at Mission West Virginia. And I'm going to introduce my panelists here. I have Kylie Hassan here. She is the communications director at Mission West Virginia for the Frameworks program. And she is going to be running the chat. So if you need anything or have a question, just shoot something in the chat box and Kylie will get our attention. And finally, I'm going to introduce Tasha, our guest speaker tonight.
Hello, guys. So I wanted to play the video for y'all first before we get into everything and talk about the journey that I went through as a foster child, and then also some trauma stuff that you can talk to your kids about or get to know about behaviors with trauma.
So just to let you know a little bit about Tasha, and then I'm going to show you her video. So Tasha grew up in foster care in Kanawha County. So she is a West Virginia native, entering care at 2 and aging out as a teenager. Tasha is a true example of resilience. She worked her way through college and has a master's in counseling. She currently works as a school-based therapist at Cabell County Schools. She is a mom to an 8-year-old boy who she describes as smart, willful, and amazing. Tasha founded Tasha Hall Inspires with the mission to help fight for children and young adults that have aged out of the foster care system. Tasha wants to provide foster youth with guidance and support them to realize they can become successful, to remind them of their worth, and to ignite a passion in them to write their own story and achieve their own dreams. So we are going to show you Tasha's video now. Bear with me as I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
It's not showing.
We having a problem, guys?
Yeah, it's not working on our, we can't see the video.
Oh boy. Okay, hold on a sec.
And just so everyone knows, yes, we cannot see any of the panelists and everyone is muted. So we can't even see you on our screen. So you can only see us on here.
Okay. All right, I'm going to try this again. I'm not sure what's going on here. The video, playing the videos through Zoom is a little tricky. We did practice a lot. Share my screen. Can you guys see my screen with the back?
Yes.
Okay.
I was placed in foster care at the age of 2. When I was 5, really kind of was still confused why I was placed in foster care and why I wasn't with my family. It was a good and bad experience. I would say that the first foster home they wasn't really as loving, but I think it's because they had over 132 foster kids in their care within a lifetime. I get to the new home and I'm like, wow, I prayed when I was 5 about having a mother, and I met a woman that it was like, wow, she's my mom. I know that I have a mom that's not taking care of me, but I just wanted somebody to actually show me love and support. And so my second foster home, I got to actually experience not feeling like I was a number. I got to experience being a part of their family, and my brothers became my brothers. Even to this day, they're my brothers. It lasted for 5 years, and then her personal problems came along, and I kind of feel like that kind of shifted the whole experience of that love and support. So I ended up moving with a single parent home, which was a very interesting experience because the rules changed. I would say that it was a good home, but what made it difficult was I was in a new school, and I'm used to having a house full of kids, and at that moment was just me. And so I would say, like, when I was 16, I went through a lot of depression, and I was my foster mom's first foster child, so she didn't know how to fix that issue that I was having as far as like anxiety and depression. I would skip class all the time. The moment that made me kind of change up and do the right thing was my foster mom kept on saying, you have to apply yourself. And I'm like, what is this apply myself? I don't know what this is. I feel like that was the greatest gift that she told me, was to apply myself, and you can have anything that you want. Graduated from high school, and that was like my greatest accomplishment at that time, and I was proud of myself because I didn't have to sign myself into high school. I could have just been a dropout, and I never wanted to actually do that. I didn't want to be homeless, so I was tired of couch surfing and going to home, and so my aunt and my foster mom, the one that I call my mom, sat down on a computer with me, and we enrolled into Marshall University. I'm at Marshall. I'm also dyslexic. I didn't know how to read or didn't know how to write, so I'm at this university trying not to be homeless. Trying my hardest. That was like my biggest fears, was homeless and projects. And I'm praying to God while I'm on campus, like, oh my God, please, Lord, I don't want to be homeless. Find a way for me to stay here because I'm flunking out of school. My friend ended up taking me to one of our friends. She busted through the door and she said, hey, we need to have a family meeting. This is the first time that I'm hearing family. And so everybody's just looking crazy, like, what the world is going on? Tasha is about to get kicked out of school. And so one of my friends ends up contacting all these people, like 4 or 5 people, and finding ways to help me stay in school. I make it through. I graduate college and end up having a son. But my plan was to go back and get my master's. I had a tough time with the lack of support after aging out. I mean, I didn't have support. I had support, but I didn't have support. I feel like my life would have been different if I was adopted before 18, before I aged out. I feel like I would have had somebody to call my mom, like somebody to call my dad. Even now, being an adult, it's still something that I feel like I lack. I still long for a mother and father. I still have to make decisions, and if I'm not doing well, even mentally, financially, I have to figure it out on my own. You don't have to be a superhero, but honestly, to that child, you are going to be a superhero. Taking that time and loving that child and giving them support and normalization of feeling like a child and is a lot. And that's going to be the biggest thing and the biggest impact that's going to happen in their life. And they'll always remember that. I noticed that my child is still a foster child. He has to deal with the things that I go through. So grandmother, he doesn't have one. Grandfather, he doesn't have one. So he has my foster mom as a grandmother, but she's not really there. It trickles down, and I don't think that people understand how that trickles down. Once you're taken away, your child is in that too, and it becomes that way. I feel like if they're having a nudge to say that they want to do it, they should do it, because that might be something that they're supposed to do. Yes, it would be scary to have a child taken away from you, but you could look back and say that at least I did what I needed to do, and that showed this child some love. That little bit of love goes a long way, and we remember you when you do that.
All right, guys. Okay. Thanks for your patience as we figure out how this all works. I am going to spotlight Tasha now, so that you can see her as your speaker. We set this up so that it's going to be a Q&A, and I'm going to ask Tasha some questions, and feel free to jump in the chat if you have questions, something that we're talking about. Jump in, and Kylie will get that question to Tasha. So here we go. Okay, so Tasha, so you entered care at age 2, and we talked about you were in 4 different foster homes, and then you ultimately aged out of care. Can you talk a little bit about why you entered care, and talk about leaving care on your own?
Okay, so I'm not really too for sure what is the reason why I entered care. That's one of the things is I'm 34 years old. I still don't know exactly what was the reasoning, and even when I tried to go back to my biological family, they do not answer that question. So not really too for sure about that. And that is something that I feel like a lot of foster kids do experience, is like that missing piece of what is the reason why I was taken away. Did they not love me, or well, it really goes to, did they not love me? So they end up punishing their self because they're thinking that their parents didn't care about them to keep them. So that's really the insight that I can give how a foster child is feeling, because I know that that was one of my things is I didn't feel like my biological mother or father cared about me to keep me. I was going to answer the next question. The other question, when I aged out of foster care, I realized that I didn't have support. So when I aged out of care, I aged out a little bit before my 18th birthday, and I became homeless at that moment because it was either age out or go into a group home. So I decided to age out instead. And so when I aged out, I was going back and forth between like a foster family's house and another foster family's house, just to have a roof over top of my head. And then one of my foster cousins ended up taking me in so I can finish my senior year of high school. So that's how I aged out.
And so Tasha and I, when we were prepping for this webinar, I said, you know, this is probably a newer generation of foster parents we're going to be speaking to, and everybody's going to ask, you were 2, and how did you not get adopted from being in foster care from the age of 2 to 18? Because hopefully that's not what we're seeing anymore. So much more focus on finding permanency for kids. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think it's very important to find permanency for the kids, because I didn't really notice anything as far as me being 2 and being in foster care, and not really, like, I didn't realize until last year somebody said, why wasn't you adopted at the age of 2? You was in there for a while. And I just thought maybe it wasn't that wasn't for me, maybe at that moment. But then it had me think about it. I was like, I was 2, and most foster parents want babies. Like, so it wasn't like I was a teenager going into the system. I was a 2-year-old child that that a foster parent would have been happy to take in up under their wing and raise them as their own child. I do think that it's very important to give that child that permanency and allowing them to stay in your home, and raising them up the way that they deserve to be raised, to be honest.
So another thing we talked about are, can you share some real examples of when you felt like you were part of that foster family, and then other times when you felt like that foster child, you didn't feel like you were the daughter or the sister or, a part of that foster family? I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. So when I felt a part of the family, the first foster home, I can't say that I really felt a part of the family. That's when I was at a young age. So I was there from 2 to 11, and I knew I was a foster child. Things were separated from me being able to go on family vacations to having to stay there during the summertime with just me and my brother, while everybody else went on family vacations. But the second foster home, they made sure that we felt apart. So every family vacations that they went on, we went on. They made sure that they filled out, what is the sheet that allows you to go out of town? I forgot what that's
Out of
called.
state. Yeah, you have to get permission to take a foster youth out of state.
Yes, so you have to get permission to take a foster youth out of state. And my foster parents in my second home, they always, and if they didn't, they put us in respite, but it wasn't all the time. Like, so every time when they went out of town, they made sure that we went with them. So I felt very a part of the second home. Like, I remember a time that in the second foster home, when I first moved into their house, she asked me, where do you want to get your school clothes? In the first foster home, we would go to Walmart or Kmart or whatever the case may be. So I said Walmart, and she kind of laughed and she said, Walmart, really? And I said yes, because I just went to what I knew. But she would have took me anywhere I wanted to go. Like if I wanted to go to the mall, she would have made sure of that. And I realized that after she answered that question, Walmart, really? So she just made sure that me and my brother was comfortable in her household. It was her and her husband, and they made sure that we was apart. And so my brothers that were their biological children, they're still my brothers. I could call them, and they always make sure that even if I do sometimes have those feelings of not being a part of their family, they will reassure me that you are my sister.
And talk about family photos.
Oh, family photos. So my first family photo that I was in, so even with the second foster home, feeling a part of, that wasn't something that we still was allowed to be in, though, because she wasn't for sure if we was going to stay with her or not. My first family photo was not until I was 25 years old. And it was when I had my son, and my son's father's cousin said, let's take a picture. And I was surprised that I even got to be in the family photo, because that wasn't something that my foster families let me be a part of, because they wasn't for sure of how long I was going to be a part of the family. It kind of really, like, that's something that I didn't realize until my grad program, that it bothered me.
For sure. I will just interject here. We are getting awesome questions from the chat box, and I'm going to try to get to everybody. And, someone is asking, was there a reunification plan? And, I warned Tasha, I was like, people are going to want to know why you weren't adopted. One of the things, Tasha and I, back in the pre-COVID world, used to meet a lot for lunch, because I'm an adoptive mom, and she has given me so much information and insight into raising my son. But one of the things we have really, there are questions she's not going to be able to answer because she was a kid and she did not know. So I'm gonna let you speak to that, Tasha, about, why you think reunification or permanency in adoption didn't happen. But I was just kind of going to interject and say, like, there's questions she can't answer still.
Yes. From what I know, is that my granny was supposed to be doing everything in her power to get us back into the family, but it didn't work that way. I think that my granny, like, she needed to take a couple of classes and everything, and it didn't work out that way. My mom, she's bipolar, so and she's severely bipolar. So she signed over her rights when she gave us up to the system, or, to the foster care system. So I'm not really too for sure, like how Rachel said.
So yeah, I think reunification, it sounds like, was off the table pretty early. And everybody wonders about that focus on permanency. Before I change topics, Kylie, do we have any questions on this same subject before I move on?
I have one. A new foster parent, and they are getting their first placement coming next week. What would you have, the child is 17 years old, and what would you have wished the foster parent would have done, said during your first few days during that placement, and what would have helped ease with the transition into a new foster home?
I would say getting to know them. Like, I don't really think after 1 or 2 or 3 days you're going to really get to know a foster child, because you don't really know how many homes that foster child has been in. So if they're 17, there's a possibility that they may have been in a couple of homes. So they might be a little bit more drawn into their self than into wanting to open up. So just making them feel at home would be one of the biggest things that I would suggest. Asking what do they like to eat, getting their favorite meal, favorite movies, like just the same way that you would try to get to know a new person that you're getting to know at work, or a new person that you're getting to know at church. Like, just treating them like a person that you want to build a relationship with.
Tasha, did you call your foster mom's mom, or did you call them something else? And what did you want to call them?
They was never called mom. So one was called me mommy, and another one was called by her actual name, and then another one was an aunt. It was whatever they asked me to call them is what I called them. I think actually one, that was my 4th foster home, she did let me call her mom, but and it did feel good to say mom because of the fact that I never got to really say that word. So, but that's not who I considered as mom. It was the 2nd foster home that I considered as a mom. So, but I got used to calling her by her name.
Gotcha. So when the first time I heard Tasha's story about college was when we were filming the video, and I was sitting there with Kylie, and I was like writing her notes like, this story is amazing. So you got to college and you basically say you couldn't read. You didn't know you were dyslexic. We have talked about, like, we're not sure when you got diagnosed dyslexic. I would love for you to talk about, what it was like being your educational experience as a foster youth, and then your story about college and your family coming together, like your friends saying, we're going to come together and get you through college. And you have a master's degree. That's amazing. So could you tell us how you think foster care affected your education?
Okay, so in the first foster home, like I said, I was 2. So I always call my homes by 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And I learned different stuff in every home that I was in. So the first foster home is where you usually get those reading skills and school etiquette and stuff like that. So I just kind of feel like because my foster parents was a little bit older, they kind of neglected the situation of me learning how to read and write. It wasn't as important to them. And maybe they just, at the moment, they didn't feel like it was that important. I'm not really too for sure. But they didn't sit down with me and you know how you would do with your kids, read a book, read a story too. They didn't do any of that. And when it came down to my schoolwork, the most important time of your life is like your kindergarten and first grade, when you're learning all that information. They wouldn't sit down and help me with that either. So I feel like it's very important, like even the way that you would do with your children, of making sure that they're doing the education part of it, sitting with them and actually working through those problems. Like if they're having struggle reading, if they're having struggle with math, like you have to think that they're learning this and we have already somewhat learned it or may have forgot it, but we can learn it together. So I think that that's very important. With my son, I make sure that I sit with him and we go over anything that he needs. Even if he doesn't want to tell me that he needs help, I will look over his work to make sure, and I will make sure that he's learning as much as he can learn. And if he's struggling, I will definitely contact a teacher. But I don't feel like that was anything that they did for me when I was younger. So I feel like that's how it went under the radar of me learning how to read and write.
So tell us how you got that master's degree when you at one point thought you were going to flunk out of college.
Okay, that was my bachelor's, and then the master's is still a story too. So that was a struggle, but at the same time, I made it through. Okay, so the master's, the bachelor's really, honestly, I went to college to not be homeless. That was the only reason why I went to college. Did not think in a million years that I was going to graduate. Did not think that people was gonna come to my rescue and say, hey, I'm gonna help you. I just know one day on campus, I prayed and I was saying, I want to be here. Please let me be here. I don't wanna be homeless. And everything just got worked out off of me arguing with the teacher. Like I asked the teacher to tell me if I was failing or not, and the teacher did not tell me until it was midterms. And then she told me to drop out of school and go to the library and learn to read. So when my friend heard us going back and forth is when she did. She busted through our friend's door and she said, hey, we need to help Tasha. Like she's about to get kicked out of school. And once my friend the other friend came to my aid, she wrote so many different people and found a way for me to stay there to where I had to show up. I had to make sure I went to this meeting. I went to another meeting. So I was constantly meeting a new person every day to make sure that I was able to stay in school. The financial aid office said, drop all your classes besides one that you know that you're going to pass. So I chose psychology, and I had a friend that helped me study in psychology until I got a C in that class. And then after that, the HELP program is an amazing program, and they taught me how to read. So I would go and say they taught me how to read. That was the main thing that I focused on at that time, is where you get constant tutoring. So I was always at the HELP program, making sure that I went to classes in the HELP program, classes in the HELP program. So it was like, I didn't have a life besides my school, but it was very important for me to graduate because I did not want to be homeless or what the statistics of being a foster child is being on the streets and being homeless or on welfare, and that's fine if people are, but that's not what I wanted to do.
So here's some questions that a lot of people want to know is, one, do you remember having a guardian ad litem, an attorney that was, appointed to represent you? And, why did you move 4 times? Or why were you in 4 different homes? What do you remember about that?
I don't remember having a lawyer or a guardian ad litem. No, I didn't know that even exists at that moment. The reason why the first foster home was because my biological brother was getting into fights with the biological dad. I mean, with the foster dad. So we found out like that you're not supposed to put your hands on a foster child, and we didn't know that because we was getting whoopings all the time. Like, so it was something that was brought to the attention, like, because I just remember like being brought to where my brother was at, because at that moment he was in a group home. And so when I went to the group home, they took me to a room and asked, like, do they whoop you? And I was like, yes. And so after that moment, they switched us to the new foster home. So that's what happened with that. The first foster home was they were doing things that they wasn't supposed to be doing. The second foster home, she was going through her own stuff. And so you have to realize that foster parents, they're human too. And some things that people go through may not, it may be very traumatic to them at that moment. So she just kind of wanted me to help a lot more around the house, like as far as like I was 14, I was 15 getting ready to go on 16. So it was kind of like I had to more take care of the household while she was at work than be a kid. So that's the best way that I can explain that one. The third home, I don't know. I don't think I want to answer that question.
You don't have to, absolutely. So it sounds like, circumstances really beyond your control.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like none of these are really about you, just circumstances.
Yes, circumstances beyond my control. Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
So from your experience, what makes a good foster parent?
Supportive. I really feel like if a person is showing support and love towards that child and treating that child just like their own, allowing that child to have normalization within the household, because you have to think that when we're bouncing from maybe 2 different homes or whatever, we automatically don't feel like we're normal like a regular child. So it's very important to show healthy relationships. So also what we see, we're going to emulate when we get older. That's the same thing as when with your kids. So if you're in a marriage, you want to show like, this is how mommy and daddy's relationship is like, so then you could emulate that relationship to, like, they can emulate that when they get older. So you have to think like some of the kids that are going into care has been taken away maybe because of abusive family, or their mom and dad were probably on drugs. So they didn't get to learn those healthy relationships. And so it's important for that as well. Just showing love and time. Showing that love, giving them time to be their self. What was you going to say, Rachel?
Oh, I remember when we filmed your video. So you've got this awesome son, he's 8. And I remember you saying, well, he's in foster care too. And that was so confusing at the time. But it's generational. So
Yeah.
how did having been raised in foster care, how do you think that affected your parenting, like once you had your own baby?
Ooh. That's a good question too. I didn't know how it was going to be being a parent. So I worked at the Child Development Academy, and I would go and say that that's something that really honestly helped me like raise my son like at a baby age, like because I was taking care of babies. So I learned how to make a bottle by working at the Child Development Academy. I learned how to change a diaper and make sure like everything was the way that he needed to learn, like learning, reading books and stuff like that was important to their development. So I learned a lot working at the Child Development Academy. And also from some of my friends, the way that they was taking care of their children, I kind of picked up some of that as well because I didn't have a mother or even a dad to go to and ask questions when it was time to take my son to the hospital if he was sick. I would have to ask one of my friends, like she was a nurse. So I would ask her, hey, he has a little bit of a temperature, but you would normally go to your mom and ask those questions. So I would have to actually go to other people that was either my friend or maybe a complete stranger and just ask questions to make sure that I did what was right for my son. Now, I know that the statement, my son is still a foster child. I actually had an example that I can give. So Christmas is coming up, and I asked him that he want to put on matching pajamas because he was saying that we don't have any Christmas traditions. He told me no. He said, no, it's just us, so there's no point to put on any matching Christmas pajamas. There should be like 5 people, a mom and a dad, and also other people involved. So that's how it affects my son, because it's me and him. He also has his dad, but we're separate. So it's really me and him. He doesn't have the grandparents. He doesn't have that I have to make sure that I take care of the pieces that are missing for him. When his friends are talking about going to their grandparents' house or going to their grandmother's house for the weekend, he doesn't have that. And I think that that's happening with a lot of foster children, is not having, or aging out children not having that support, but it trickles down to your children too. So luckily, I have been talking to him about this for most of his life, that I don't think it bothers him as much. It's just he'll give me that quick statement and then it's time to move forward. But I said, we could still do that with me and you. There's nothing wrong with that. But to him, a family's supposed to be big.
And that really segues into the next question I was going to ask you is, how we struggle to explain to people why this 17-and-a-half-year-old, why we're still working to get them adopted. Do they need to be adopted when they're 18 years and 1 day? And we kind of did a campaign around that for Adoption Month this month, which is, you're still calling your parents when you're in your 40s. My parents were babysitting today.
Mm-hmm.
Kids need parents. So how else, do you feel like your life would have been different if there had been work towards finding permanency for you?
I definitely would have a lot more support. I had to learn how to do everything on my own. So I have my friends that if I really need them, but I learned to not really ask for help. But if I'm hurting financially, it's just me. And when I was in college, I had to figure out where to go during holidays. So, and it wasn't even like where to go for the holiday of spending Thanksgiving. No, it was like for the week of the shutdowns when nobody's in school. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to lay my head for this week? There was sometimes it would get worked out to where I could stay in the dorms and have a roof over top of my head. And then sometimes I would stay with a friend. But it wasn't always like that. I mean, I just had, that's a little bit different, like, because even in college-wise, there's the success in college is really slim as well. And I really think it's because they don't have a place to go. And you have to think about when a foster child, like say that you're a parent to your college child, they can come home to you. If they have a problem, they can call you and say, hey, I don't think I'm doing well in this class. But a foster child don't have that. So once they age out, unless they sign themselves back in, but most of the time they still don't have that parent to talk to say, hey, this class is getting really tough for me and I don't really know what to do. Should I quit? Should I stay? I'm not really too for sure. Making those decisions was very hard for me as well.
So here's a big question. So you're the success story, you know, and you obviously have some very special resilience. Also, you know, you're an extrovert. You made your own support system. How do we duplicate this with other kids? What do we need to be doing, foster parents, people in the field, to give voice to these youth, which I know is a huge goal you have with Tasha Hall Inspires, but to make sure that more youth are becoming the success that you are and having positive outcomes?
The main thing is support, showing them support. I feel like that's the biggest thing. When they age out, they'll need somebody to hold their hand. No matter what age you are, you shouldn't be just thrown out. And it's not even signing out. I felt like I was just thrown out. So, because I didn't know who to reach out to. I came to Marshall University and it was a foreign land to me. I'm from Charleston. So I didn't know who I was gonna run into besides one of my friends that was on campus that I knew for a fact that she was there. But any more than that, I didn't know if I was gonna have any friends. So it would have been nice to still have that person, that parent to call and show that, like have that support at the same time. So that's something that I feel like would be the biggest thing for success, is standing beside your foster child when they're going through college, just as well as you would stand there for your own child.
So at Mission, West Virginia, we talk to about 2,000 people a year who call or fill out a form online and say, I'm thinking about being a foster parent. Statistically, about 3 to 10% of those families actually go on and get certified and be a foster parent. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of, I'm going to get this perfect baby and they're going to go back to their bio family, or I'm going to get this teenager and they're going to have horrible behaviors. What would you tell someone who's thinking about being a foster parent to overcome their hesitation and their fear?
A child's going to learn from you regardless if they're with you for 2 days, 3 days, 4. They're going to learn from you. So you're going to put encouragement in them off of the little bit of time that they're going to be spending with you. That's the biggest thing. And even if they're not with you if they're only with you for a short amount of time, doesn't mean that you're not going to make an impact in their life. And I think that that's the part that you can think about, is I made an impact regardless of how long the time was that I spent with this child. And also, if you make that big impact, they're always going to think about you. So you never know. You might get that phone call later on down the line saying, hey, I just want to call and tell you how great I'm doing. And they might ask, hey, do you care if I can come over and just chat with you? And so you'll still have those moments with that child. You just never know how the impact's going to be with them, you know?
And that's what you say at the end of your video. We remember you. And that's always the
We
part that really
remember
gets to me. Yeah.
Yes, we really do remember you. Like, there's so many stories that I can tell when a person made an impact on me. I told a story a couple of days ago to a group of people, but there was this pastor that I knocked on his door just to make a little bit of extra money, and he let me come into the church and clean. But my uncle taught me, you'll always have a job if you're willing to do some type of hard labor, like even if it was just to run the sweeper. And that's what I did, but I remembered what my uncle said for me to go and try to get a little bit of extra money. And I said I didn't get the money right away because I was too nervous to go back and ask for the money. But that pastor remembered me 2 years later to give me the money. Like, so those impacts are very, very important. So I would honestly give fostering or in the process of fostering, there's adoption. So I would give it a chance.
And this is where we're going to kind of cross your personal experience and your professional experience. You're a counselor. Give us some insight on how trauma affects behaviors and maybe some encouragement. We see a lot of placements disrupt because of behaviors. So talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So I have like a little saying, but I'm looking for it. Give me 1 second.
Tasha had a great PowerPoint, and then I went in and rearranged it. That's
it's
what's going on here.
It's okay. It's fine. So this is about a teenager, though. So it says, imagine that there's that a teenager's trauma is so heavy, so it's like a heavy book bag on their shoulders, and they're carrying around that book bag every placement that they go to. So that means that that book bag gets heavier and heavier. And then also that book bag can be so overwhelming to that foster child that that from all that past and all that all the stuff that has been placed on them, that they feel abandoned and they probably have been hurt from that they carry it along everywhere they go. And even when they leave your home, they can also carry around that stress and that feeling unloved feeling. So that's how when a foster child is carrying around all those different feelings and all those different emotions with them, can lead to behaviors. But the behaviors is not directed because of your household. It's just what they went through at that moment, what they went through at all the other places. They don't feel like they're loved. They feel abandoned. So when it comes down to trauma, it's something that's affected in their brain. So when they're going through trauma, they're feeling like it's PTSD that they're still dealing with. And so the child is experiencing different behaviors that are not directed towards the household. It's directed towards how they're feeling inside of themselves. So they feel like you don't care about them. So why do I have to give this a chance? Why do I have to do this? To where they already gave up on their self. But just imagine if you gave them some support, if you cared about trying to make a big difference in their life to where they can go and lighten that load. And then if they're lightening that load, they're allowing you to come in, and they're allowing you to be able to teach them something new, because they're not giving up on themselves anymore. That's the thing about trauma, is at the moment they are emotionally, they're physically drained, and it happens at a young age. So you have a long day at work, and you come back from work and you're ready to lay down because you were so tired at work. It's kind of like that, and they're probably 5. Do you get what I'm saying? So let me know if you're understanding me, because I'm trying to just collect some of the stuff that's from my PowerPoint.
No, this
They
is
have,
your insight is good. Thank you.
well, I know that it's also a lot of trust issues. We don't trust people. So that acting out behavior as far as fighting and being aggressive, running away is part of depression and anxiety of having to be in a new home, or having to actually have to trust you. And we kind of make people earn our trust, but it comes out in a negative way because you're like, this kid is making me earn this. And so when it's coming out in a negative way, you kind of have to prove to us that you want us there, because our parent already let us go. So we want you to show us are we worth being in your household? And so we might show you the negative aspect of us before we show the positive.
And you and I, when we talked about adoption the other day, I remember you said it was always, Tasha, do you want to be adopted? It wasn't, Tasha, this family wants to adopt you. And that's what you're looking for, right? This
Yes.
family wants me.
This family wants me. Yes. Like, it's more, I already feel abandoned by my biological family. So do you want me in your family? Because I know I was telling her, I was talking to Rachel the other day, and I said, my foster mom would always ask me, but it would be in front of my workers. So was it genuine? Like, it wasn't like something that we just was riding around in the car and was asked, like, do you want to be adopted? It was, do you want to be adopted? And I would always say, no, I like being a hall. But it wasn't a genuine thing, like, we want you in our household. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
it does.
Okay.
We have got about 10 minutes left. Tasha, are you up for some questions from the audience? I'm going to let Kylie run that chat box.
Sure.
All right. There are a few comments that I just want to highlight. We have a couple other people who were in foster care. Some had gone in and out of 15 homes. And a couple comments just wanted to say that they understand and acknowledge everything you're saying. They're just so happy that you're able to share your experience to help other people. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw those.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. So some of them we kind of touched on. What did you think that, or how did you manage school with all of the things that you were tackling at the same time?
That is a really good question. Prayer. Like, I'm very religious, so God, that was the only thing that kept me trucking. I would have to listen to music that was saying, like, one of my favorite songs was Mary Mary, there's going to be mountains that I would have to climb, but victory or defeat is something I decide. So it was music that helped me. It was God that helped me. I promise, like, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him, honestly.
Yeah. If you had any engagement with social workers while you're in the system, do you feel that they were a supportive resource for you throughout your experiences during your time in care? And do you feel like they could have done more to support you? And if so, how?
My social workers?
Yes. Do you think that they were a supportive resource for you during your experiences? And could they have done more to support you?
Yeah, I feel like my social workers, I feel like I had some good social workers. Like, any questions that I had, they was right there to answer them. One of my social workers for my birthday came and got me, and she took me out to lunch. So she made sure that my birthday was special, because that's something that sometimes as a foster child, your birthday is not that special because maybe they're not going to, your foster parents might not do nothing for you. Or even when you age out of foster care, who's going to call you and say happy birthday? So she made sure that my birthday was special. And I honestly, I'm grateful for the social workers that I did have.
That's great. What do you think that community members can do to support children in care?
Community they support, even if they're not in your household, just teaching them what you can teach them, supporting them when they're crying, or have a problem, because you might be the only person that they're opening up to. So showing that support would be one of the biggest things that I would say.
As an adult, would you still like to be a part of a family connection, or do you feel like it's too late to kind of make that?
A family connection?
Yes.
I feel like with my second foster mom, I have somewhat a family connection. I mean, I feel like some people are distant, and that's the thing about that connection is like we're just a distant type of family, but we do care about each other. Does that make sense? Like, so I may not get that help, but I know my brothers are my brothers regardless. So, but is it too late? No, it's never too late. I say that my friends are my family too. So I built a friendship connection with a lot of people, and we support each other. So I don't think it's too late.
I agree 100%. And this is kind of something we've talked about the whole time, but do you think it's possible to earn the trust of a teenager that's been in the system for a very long time, that's getting ready to age out? Do you think that they can earn the trust of that teenager that's on the verge of aging out?
I do think it's possible. It may take a little bit of time, but I don't think anybody wants to walk the world alone. So if it's genuine, if it's something that you really honestly want to connect with that child, then be there for the child and allow the child to open up on their own, but just showing that you actually care about them, because nobody wants to be alone.
Absolutely.
I think we have time for one final question. And for anyone who didn't get to have their question answered, I'm going to share Tasha's info at the end of this. And I'm also going to send out, she put together some really good resources. I'm going to email those out. So Kylie, you got one more good question for us?
Someone is asking if there is a program that adults can join and be there for children who have aged out of the system.
That is there. I mean, that's something that this is what Tasha Inspires is about. So that's something that I think anybody could create, because that is something that is needed, is that support system. So anybody can create that if that's actually what they are interested in doing.
I knew that was something you're passionate about, so I wanted to ask that question for you.
We're waiting for Tasha to write that grant, and then we're all going to do that together.
Well, working on it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Just a couple of housekeeping details. We have a couple more webinars coming up in December. Also will be 7 o'clock in the evening. We have one on natural hair care, especially for parents who are parenting transracially. That'll be December 1st. And December 8th, we have Chauncey Strong, who will be talking about foster parent and birth family relationships and interactions. So we'll get those out to everybody who is on here. I'm also going to get Tasha's slides. She put together some good trauma resources. And I'm going to share screen real quick, if I can do this right, and show you her. Let's see. Right there. There's Tasha's email, but I'm going to send this all out to you guys because I'll have a participant list. This was a well-attended webinar. I'm so happy so many people could make it on. We kind of pressured Tasha into doing this, and she was a little bit nervous. And I just want to say big thank you to Tasha. That's a lot to spend a whole hour talking about some really hard topics. To people that you can't even see. And you guys have really shared some nice things in the chat box. I'm going to make sure she sees all of that before we sign off tonight. Kylie, anything else before we wrap up?
Yep. We have one more question about the recording of the webinar, and it is a recorded webinar, so we will be able to share that with you guys after it's over, so you can share that out, and we will get it up on our website. So our website is missionwv.org, and we have a tab for webinars, and we will also keep our Facebook updated, and you can just find us at Mission West Virginia.
And also, if you go to that website, look under resources, under frameworks, you can see Tasha's video again, and also some videos of some other former foster youth in West Virginia. So good night, everyone, and I hope we'll see you in December.
Good night, everybody.